She said it so casually I almost missed it. Could you stay a little later tonight? It was the kind of line that shouldn't mean anything. Except the way she said it, soft, distracted, her eyes not quite meeting mine, made it sound like something else entirely. The office was emptying around us, that strange half-light hour where everything turns golden and too quiet. She stood by her desk, sleeves rolled to her elbows, hair gathered loosely at the nape of her neck. Ms. Rowan. Always composed. Always a little out of reach. I'd only been working there 3 months, but I knew her rhythms. The way she tapped her pen against her lip when she was thinking, how she never let anyone see her eat lunch, how her tone softened a little when she said my name. Of course, I said, trying to sound easy professional. My voice came out lower than I meant. She nodded once. Good. For a while, it was just the sound of keyboards winding down and someone's laugh fading down the hallway. Then it was just us, her heels clicking faintly across the floor as she gathered papers, the hum of the air conditioner, the faint scent of her perfume that didn't belong in an office that's sterile. I stayed by the copy machine, pretending to check something, but really just watching. The light from her desk lamp cut across her face, softening the years I knew she tried not to show. She caught me looking once. Didn't smile, didn't scold, just held my gaze for a fraction too long. Would you mind helping me with this report? She asked finally. Sure, I said. She moved closer, handed me a folder. Our fingers brushed. Static, brief, nothing, except it wasn't nothing. Her nails grazed the inside of my wrist when she pulled away. It was accidental, maybe. My pulse betrayed me anyway. We went through the reports together. Or pretended to. Half the numbers blurred in front of me. She leaned over my shoulder, pointing something out on the screen. I could feel the warmth of her breath, smell the faint trace of coffee and something floral. You missed a line, she murmured. I turned my head, just slightly, and her voice caught. We were too close, both of us realizing it at the same time. She straightened quickly, a soft exhale slipping out. Long day, she said, almost laughing. Yeah, I answered. Feels longer now. That earned the smallest smile from her. One that didn't reach her eyes. Silence settled again, thicker this time. The kind that makes every sound sharper. The scratch of her pen, the slow creak of her chair, my own heartbeat trying to pretend it wasn't racing. You remind me of someone, she said suddenly, not looking up. I wanted to ask who, but she kept writing. Her tone had changed, quieter, distant. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Good reminder, I hope. No answer. Just the faintest pause in her hand, then. Not sure yet. Her phone buzzed against the desk. She ignored it. When she finally stood, it was with a kind of decision. She gathered her bag, glanced at the clock, then at me. Lock up when you're done? Yeah, I said, but she didn't move. She just stood there, watching me for a second too long. The light flickered, the hallway beyond her already dark. Then she stepped closer again. Close enough for me to see the tremor in her hand before she caught herself. She opened her mouth to say something. But just then, the elevator dinged. She froze. The sound of footsteps echoed toward us. Her eyes found mine, steady, unreadable, and she whispered barely above a breath. Don't say anything. The footsteps passed the office and faded. The elevator doors closed again. She let out a breath I don't think she realized she'd been holding. For a second, neither of us moved. The glow from her desk lamp caught the edge of her profile, that controlled stillness she wore like armor. You should go, she said finally, voice steadier than before. But she didn't. She stayed by the doorway, one hand resting on the frame, her thumb brushing the edge like she was deciding something. I just need to finish this, I said, though I hadn't even opened the folder. She nodded, slow. All right. The silence between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was alive. I could hear the faint hum of the vending machine down the hall, the muted city outside, the soft sound of her ring tapping the doorframe. She glanced back once. You remind me of my first assistant. Fresh out of college. Thought he could take on the world. I smiled. Did he? Not quite, she said. He fell in love instead. The line landed heavier than she meant it to. Her gaze shifted away quickly, to the dim light on the carpet. Wasn't me, she added. Too fast. Just someone else in the office. Right, I said, though we both knew she didn't need to clarify. She came back to her desk, gathered a few papers that didn't need gathering. I watched the way her fingers moved, precise, practiced, like someone who'd built her life around staying composed. There was a faint mark on her ring finger, pale and permanent. Not from today. Do you ever get tired of it? I asked quietly. Tired of what? Being the one who always knows what to do. That stopped her. She looked up, eyes narrowing, not defensive, more surprised. She studied me for a long time, and I almost wished I hadn't said it. Then she smiled, small and tired. Every day. I nodded. Me too. You, she said, half laughing. You're barely out of school. Still counts, I said. Some of us start early. Her lips curved, not quite amusement, not quite pity. Something gentler. She sat on the edge of the desk, close enough that her knee brushed my sleeve. The contact was light, accidental, but neither of us moved. Don't do that, she said softly. Do what? Look at me like that. I opened my mouth to deny it, but her hand lifted, not touching me, just hovering, like she could feel the air between us change. Ms. Rowan. She shook her head. Don't. But she didn't move away either. The clock on the wall clicked over to 8:47. The sound felt too loud in the stillness. I could see the faint pulse at her throat, the rise and fall of her breath. She looked down, almost ashamed of something neither of us had done yet. I don't want you to think, she began, then stopped. What? Her eyes lifted, and whatever she was about to say softened into something else. Instead of words, she reached out, adjusted my collar, fingers brushing against my skin, a quiet, unnecessary gesture that said everything she wouldn't. Then she stepped back, composed again. Good night, she said, barely above a whisper. And this time, she didn't look back when she walked away. But her perfume lingered long after she left, like the question she still hadn't answered. The next morning, she barely looked at me. Just a quiet morning when I walked in, her tone too careful. It should have eased things, but it didn't. Every distance she put between us only made me notice more. How she avoided meeting my eyes, how she passed folders to everyone but me, how her laugh sounded practiced when she spoke to others. At noon, she called me into her office. The blinds were half drawn. The light caught the dust floating in the air, slow and gold. She stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the street below. About last night, she started. I waited, heart thudding once hard. It was unprofessional. Her tone was crisp, but her shoulders gave her away. I shouldn't have kept you that late. I nodded. You didn't. She looked at me then, sharp, searching. Don't do that. Do what? Make me the villain. Her voice cracked slightly on that last word, and for a moment, all the walls she'd built around herself trembled. I don't, I said quietly. A soft knock broke through the air. We both froze. Ms. Rowan, someone called from outside. Do you have a minute? She turned fast, panic flickering across her face. Yes, just a second. She stepped closer, closing the gap between us in an instant. I could feel the edge of her breath, the faint brush of her sleeve against mine. Move, she whispered, eyes wide. I tried, but the desk corner caught my hip. She reached out instinctively, steadying me, her hand gripping my arm, firm, warm. The knock came again. Just hold on, she called. We stayed like that for a beat too long. Her hand still on me, my pulse jumping under her fingers. Her eyes dropped to where we touched, then back up. I should, she began, but didn't finish. Another knock. Ms. Rowan? She pulled away, smoothed her skirt, then opened the door a crack. Her co-worker, Denise, poked her head in. Meeting moved to 2. Just letting you know. Thank you, she said, tone perfectly steady. When the door shut again, she leaned against it, exhaled. I caught the faintest shake in her hands. That, she said, half laughing, was close. Too close, I said. Something about the way I said it made her look up again. Neither of us smiled. Do you ever think, I started. No, she said, too fast. You don't even know what I was. I do, she whispered. The air between us thinned, stretched. She stepped forward. I didn't back away. Every sound, the clock ticking, the hum of the vent, the muted street noise, fell away. Her fingers brushed against the papers on her desk, then stilled. She looked at me like she was memorizing the moment, knowing she shouldn't, unable not to. This isn't wise, she said finally. I know. Her eyes softened. Then why? I moved just slightly, enough that she could feel the heat between us. Because you keep saying my name like that. She blinked once. The smallest, sharpest breath caught in her throat. Her phone buzzed on the desk, slicing through the moment. We both startled. A message flashed, a name I didn't recognize. She reached for it quickly, turned the screen down and whispered, Go. I hesitated. Please, she said, but there was no command left in her voice. Just something raw, trembling. I left the room, but her reflection lingered in the glass. eyes closed, hand pressed to her lips, like she was holding something she couldn't let slip. It rained that night, hard, relentless, like the sky had finally run out of patience. Most of the office had cleared out early, but she was still there, light spilling through the glass walls of her office. From my desk, I could see her silhouette moving, slow, deliberate, like she was fighting the urge to leave. I waited too long to pack up. Or maybe I was waiting for her. When I finally walked past her door, she spoke without looking up. "You're still here. So are you." Her eyes lifted. She looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from holding something in too long. "You shouldn't stay late every night. People will talk." "About what?" She hesitated. "About things that aren't true." The way she said it, low, careful, made my pulse skip. And what if they were? Her jaw tightened. Then we'd both be stupid. I stepped closer, the rain pattering harder against the windows. The scent of her perfume mixed with the faint bitterness of coffee left untouched on her desk. "You think I don't notice?" I said. She blinked, uncertain. "Notice what?" "The way you stop breathing when I walk in." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For a second, the only thing between us was the sound of the storm. I reached forward, not to touch her, not yet, but to move a strand of hair that had fallen across her cheek. She didn't flinch. "You shouldn't," she whispered. "I know." Her eyes closed. "Then why does it feel like you're about to?" Because I was. Because every night had been building toward this. Every stolen glance, every unfinished sentence. "I don't know how to stop thinking about you," I said quietly. The words landed between us like something broken and irreversible. She opened her eyes slowly. "You're not supposed to say that." "Then why do you look like you've been waiting for me to?" Her breath caught. I could see her fighting herself, the battle playing out in every flicker of her expression. Want, fear, guilt. "This isn't fair," she said finally, voice shaking. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing." I took another step, close enough to feel the warmth of her body, the faint shiver that ran through her when she exhaled. Her hand brushed my arm, almost unconsciously, then stayed there, light, trembling. She looked up at me, eyes glassy, mouth parted. "If anyone saw us." "They won't." She laughed, soft and broken. "You have no idea what this could cost." I shook my head. "Maybe not. But I know what it costs to keep pretending." The thunder rolled, low and distant. She reached up, fingertips grazing my jaw like she was testing if I was real. "This can't happen," she whispered. And still, she didn't pull away. Her hand lingered against my skin, a question, an apology, and something dangerously close to surrender. I leaned in, just enough for her breath to brush my lips. Then the phone on her desk rang. We both froze. The sound sliced through the moment like a blade. Her eyes snapped open, wide, guilty, aching. "Don't," she breathed. "Please don't." But her voice trembled, and I couldn't tell whether she meant don't stop or don't start. The phone stopped ringing after the third tone. Neither of us moved. The silence it left behind felt heavier than the storm outside. She finally reached for it, slow, hesitant, checked the screen, then went still. Her expression changed in a way I couldn't read. "What is it?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just set the phone down face down and whispered, "Nothing." But her hand trembled. I caught a glimpse before she turned it over, a message preview. "He knows." The air in the room shifted. "Who?" I asked, careful. She closed her eyes, breathed out through her nose. "You need to go. Tell me what's going on." I said go. Her tone was sharper now, but her voice cracked halfway through, soft enough to betray her. "Ms. Rowan." "Stop calling me that." The words came fast, sharp. Then softer. "Please." She turned away, pressing a hand to her forehead like the weight of the room was suddenly too much. I stepped closer. "Who sent it?" "It doesn't matter," she said. "Someone overheard something. Maybe saw something." Her voice trailed off. "Saw what?" I asked, though I already knew. The look she gave me said everything. "This. Us. Whatever this is becoming." I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from the realization that she'd said us. "You're not the one they'll blame," she added. "You'll walk away." "I won't." I wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that I wouldn't let that happen, but the lie stuck in my throat. Her phone buzzed again, the sound sharp and angry in the quiet. She didn't look this time, just whispered, "It's from my ex-husband." That caught me off guard. "He still checks in, pretends to care." Her laugh was thin, bitter. "He works in the same building. He heard something last night, maybe saw you leaving." Her hands tightened into fists. He thinks it's happening already. And if he's right? I said before I could stop myself. She looked up at me then, eyes bright with something that wasn't quite anger. Then I lose everything I've rebuilt. We stood there, breathing the same thin air, both waiting for one of us to say the thing neither should. You don't have to keep pretending it's just work, I said quietly. She shook her head. You make it sound simple. It is, I said, though my pulse said otherwise. No, she whispered. It's ruin. And yet, she didn't move when I stepped closer. Her breath trembled against my collar. Her fingers brushed my sleeve, then tightened, holding on for just a second too long. I can't stop thinking about you, she said finally, voice breaking. And I hate myself for it. Before I could answer, the office door clicked open. We turned too fast, too guilty. Denise stood there, eyes wide, confusion flickering to something sharper. Sorry, she said slow. Didn't mean to interrupt. But she didn't leave. Her gaze drifted from me to her, to the space between us that said more than any words could. Ms. Rowan straightened, smoothing her blouse. Just going over reports. Right, Denise said, her tone too light. When the door finally closed again, she pressed a hand to her chest, eyes darting to me. She knows, she whispered. And then quieter still. So now we either stop. Her voice broke. Or we stop pretending. The office felt smaller that night. The air too still, the lights dimmer than usual. As if the building itself knew something was about to end. She hadn't spoken to me all day. Just polite nods, a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. But when everyone left, she lingered again, standing by the window with the city lights painting her reflection in gold. I hovered by the doorway, unsure if I should speak. You shouldn't be here, she said, not turning around. You said that yesterday. I meant it both times. She turned finally, arms folded, but it wasn't distance, it was defense. The kind that comes from knowing you've already lost the argument with yourself. Denise didn't say anything, I said quietly. I know, she answered. But she will. Eventually. Her voice trembled slightly, and I realized it wasn't fear of being caught. It was fear of wanting to stop and being unable to. I can quit, I said. Her eyes shot to mine. Don't be ridiculous. I mean it. If that's what it takes. It's not. I took a step closer. Then what do you want me to do? She shook her head, a faint, helpless smile tugging at her mouth. You really don't know when to stop. Not with you, I said. The words landed between us like static. She took one breath, then another, each one shallower than the last. When she spoke again, it was softer. You think this is some story where we find each other and everything suddenly makes sense? No, I said. I think it's the part where we finally stop lying. Her composure cracked. Just a flicker, a blink too long, a tremor in her voice when she whispered, You're too young to understand what this costs. Maybe, but I understand what it feels like. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of her body, the faint brush of her breath when she said, Don't. I didn't move. Neither did she. Her hand came up, not to push me away, but to steady herself. Her fingers grazed my chest, then flattened there. My pulse answered before I could think. This isn't right, she said again, though the words came out like a plea, not a rule. Then tell me to leave. She looked up, really looked, and I saw the storm she'd been hiding behind every careful word. Loneliness, regret, the ache of wanting something she shouldn't. Her hand tightened against me. You think this fixes anything? No, I said. But it's real. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything we hadn't said, everything we'd been pretending not to feel. She leaned forward, almost unconsciously, until her forehead rested against mine. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. You shouldn't have stayed. But I did, I said. And for the first time, she didn't pull away. The clock ticked once, loud and final, and in that stillness, we stopped pretending entirely. Not in words, not in a kiss, but in the quiet surrender of knowing we'd already crossed the line long before tonight. When she finally stepped back, there was no fear left between us, only clarity. Her eyes were wet when she said it. Now you know. I always did. The rain had stopped by morning, but the city still smelled like it. Damp air, concrete cooling in soft sunlight. She came in late. No blazer, no heels. Just a simple sweater, hair loose around her shoulders. The version of her no one else ever saw. When she walked past my desk, she didn't speak. Just paused, long enough for me to look up, and nodded toward her office. The door clicked shut behind me. For once, she didn't stand behind the desk. She sat on the edge, hands folded, eyes steady but softer than I'd ever seen them. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "Barely," I said. "Same." There was a pause, and then, "We can't take back last night." "I don't want to." She exhaled, looking at the floor, the faintest smile tugging at her mouth. "You make everything sound so simple." "It is," I said, stepping closer. "We complicate it because we're scared." She looked up again. The fear was still there, but so was something gentler. "You think that's all it is?" "I think it's enough." She laughed quietly, shaking her head. "You really are too young." "Maybe that's why I'm not jaded yet," I said. That made her laugh, really laugh, for the first time in days. The sound filled the room, light and unguarded. When it faded, she wiped at the corner of her eye, and the gesture broke something open in me. "I don't care what anyone says," I said softly. "I see you. That's all I ever wanted." Her face softened. "And when they start talking, when they call me desperate or you naive, then we stop listening." She stared at me a long time, searching my face for hesitation. There wasn't any. Finally, she reached out, tentative at first, and took my hand. Her thumb traced the inside of my wrist, slow, absent-minded. "This is wrong," she murmured, though there was no conviction left in it. "Maybe," I said. "But it feels honest." She stood, still holding my hand. "You're not walking away, are you?" "Not this time." We stayed there for a moment, not kissing, not hiding, just standing too close in the soft light, her head tilted slightly, my thumb brushing the back of her hand. Everything else could wait. When she finally leaned in, it wasn't a grand moment, no rush or fireworks. Just the warmth of her forehead resting against mine, her breath mingling with mine, the quiet rhythm of two people who had run out of reasons to pretend. "Stay," she whispered. I wasn't planning on leaving. And for once, that was enough. No more running, no more almosts. Just the quiet certainty that something fragile had survived the storm. Outside, the city moved on, unaware, uncaring, but inside that office, everything felt still. Real. Her hand stayed in mine until the morning turned to afternoon, and neither of us reached for the clock. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?